Imagine discovering a computer built 2,000 years before computers should have existed. Now imagine that everything you were taught about ancient civilizations was wrong. What you're about to discover will challenge the very foundation of human history. Because scattered across our planet are artifacts, structures, and mysteries so impossible, so advanced, that modern science has no explanation for how they exist. These aren't myths. These aren't legends. These are real archaeological discoveries that simply shouldn't be possible. Welcome to a journey into the unexplained. A journey that will force us to ask the most disturbing question in all of human history: were our ancient ancestors far more advanced than we ever imagined? Or did they have help from someone or something we can't even comprehend? I'm about to show you 15 mysteries that will forever change how you see the ancient world. But I warn you, once you see what I'm about to show you, there's no going back. For over 200 years, mainstream archaeology has painted a simple picture of human development. Our ancestors, they tell us, were primitive. They used simple tools, basic mathematics, and brute force to build their monuments. It's a comfortable story, a linear progression from savagery to civilization. But here's the problem with that story. It's falling apart. With every new discovery, with every advanced analysis, we're finding evidence that doesn't fit, precision that shouldn't exist, knowledge that couldn't have been obtained, technology that defies the timeline. And the most unsettling part, the establishment is running out of explanations. Throughout this investigation, we'll explore mysteries that fall into three disturbing categories. First, impossible engineering, structures built with a precision and scale that modern construction crews, with all their equipment, struggle to replicate. Second, lost technology, ancient devices and techniques that demonstrate scientific knowledge centuries, sometimes millennia, ahead of their time. And third, forbidden knowledge, evidence that ancient civilizations possessed astronomical, mathematical, and geographical information they had no way of obtaining. According to conventional history, each mystery we examine has been studied by experts. Each has been measured, analyzed, and debated. And each one defies explanation. Now, before we begin, I need to be clear about something. This isn't about proving any particular theory. This isn't about aliens or Atlantis or any predetermined conclusion. This is about evidence. Raw, physical, undeniable evidence that exists in our world right now. Evidence that challenges the official narrative. Our job isn't to explain these mysteries away. Our job is to look at them honestly, scientifically, and ask the questions that need to be asked. Because if we've been wrong about our past, what else have we been wrong about? Over the next 90 minutes, you're going to see photographs, measurements, and analysis that will seem impossible. You'll hear what the experts say, and what they're afraid to say. Some of these mysteries might have natural explanations we haven't discovered yet. Others might force us to completely rewrite human history. If you're ready to question everything you thought you knew about the ancient world, if you're ready to see evidence that mainstream education ignores, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because what we're about to uncover is just the beginning. Let's start with the most famous mystery of all time. One that continues to baffle engineers to this very day. Chapter 1: The Great Pyramid Mystery. The Great Pyramid of Giza. You've seen it in pictures. You've read about it in textbooks. You think you know the story. But what if I told you that almost everything you've been taught about this monument is either incomplete, oversimplified, or flat out wrong? According to mainstream archaeology, the Great Pyramid was built around 2560 BC as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu. They tell us it took 20 years to build, using approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, with the average block weighing 2.5 tons. The story goes that armies of workers, using copper tools, wooden sledges, and sheer human determination quarried, transported, and precisely placed these massive stones. It's an inspiring tale of human achievement. There's just one problem. The math doesn't work. Let's do some basic calculations that anyone can verify. 2.3 million blocks. 20 years. That's 7,300 days if they worked every single day without rest. That means they would need to quarry, transport, and precisely place 315 blocks every single day. But it gets worse. If they work 10-hour days, that's one block every 114 seconds. Every 2 minutes, a 2.5-ton block had to be quarried from the earth, transported to the pyramid, lifted into position, and set with such precision that you can't fit a knife blade between the joints. And remember, some blocks weigh up to 80 tons. The granite blocks in the king's chamber weigh 70 tons each. And they're located 150 feet above ground level, with copper tools and wooden ramps. But the impossibility doesn't stop with the construction timeline. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a single degree. This level of precision requires sophisticated astronomical knowledge and surveying equipment. The 4 sides of the base are aligned to the cardinal directions with astonishing accuracy, better than the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, which was built thousands of years later. The base is nearly perfectly level, with a deviation of less than an inch across 755 feet. Modern construction firms, with laser levels and GPS technology, struggle to achieve this accuracy. Here's where it gets truly bizarre. In 1995, engineer Christopher Dunn conducted a detailed analysis of the granite blocks inside the Great Pyramid. What he found stunned the archaeological community. The blocks showed evidence of precision machining, perfectly flat surfaces, sharp 90-degree angles, and tool marks that suggest high-speed cutting implements. Dunn, a precision machinist with decades of experience, stated unequivocally, the precision of the work is not consistent with the technology that we're told was available. He found evidence of what appears to be lathe work, drill holes that show a spiral groove, indicating a drill that cut through granite faster than modern, diamond-tipped drills, and saw marks that suggest blades at least 9 feet long. Remember, this is granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. The ancient Egyptians, we're told, had copper tools. Copper is softer than granite. You cannot cut granite with copper. It's physically impossible. Then there are the internal chambers and passages. The Grand Gallery is a corbelled masterpiece, rising 28 feet high at an angle of 26 degrees. Each of the massive limestone blocks is positioned with millimeter accuracy. The King's Chamber contains granite blocks weighing up to 70 tons, cut and placed with such precision that the tolerances are within 0.01 of an inch, tighter than modern building standards. Above the King's Chamber are 5 additional chambers, constructed with even more massive granite blocks, designed to relieve weight and pressure. This demonstrates an advanced understanding of engineering, weight distribution, and architectural stress knowledge that supposedly didn't exist for another 4,000 years. Modern engineers have tried to explain the Great Pyramid using the accepted historical narrative. They've proposed ramps, levers, and massive workforce. But every proposed method has serious problems. A ramp tall enough and gradual enough to raise 70-ton blocks to the King's Chamber would require more material than the pyramid itself. The internal ramps theory requires demolishing and rebuilding sections, no evidence of which exists. Lever systems would require spaces that don't exist inside the structure. Here's what we know for certain. The Great Pyramid exists. It's real. You can touch it. It was built with a precision that matches or exceeds modern construction. It demonstrates knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering that shouldn't have existed. And despite our advanced technology, despite our computers and machinery, we could not build an exact replica today within the same constraints. So the question isn't whether the Great Pyramid is impressive. The question is, how was it really built? And perhaps more importantly, who taught the ancient Egyptians these techniques? But the Great Pyramid isn't the oldest mystery. Not by a long shot. What we're about to explore next is even more disturbing, because it predates the pyramids by over 7,000 years. And it completely destroys our understanding of human civilization. Chapter 2: Göbekli Tepe, Civilization's Hidden Origin. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt was investigating a site in southeastern Turkey that locals had avoided for generations, believing it to be cursed. What he discovered would force archaeologists to completely rewrite the timeline of human civilization. Göbekli Tepe. A name that should be as famous as the pyramids, but isn't. And perhaps there's a reason for that silence. When the site was carbon dated, the results came back with a number that seemed impossible. 11,600 years old. Let me put that in perspective. Göbekli Tepe is twice as old as the Great Pyramid. It's older than writing, older than the wheel, older than pottery, older than metal tools. According to everything we thought we knew about human development, when Göbekli Tepe was built, humans were supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers, living in small nomadic groups, barely surviving. They had no agriculture, no civilization, no reason or ability to build monumental architecture. And yet, they built this. Göbekli Tepe consists of massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in circular formations. These aren't crude stone markers. These are precisely carved pillars, standing up to 18 feet tall, decorated with intricate reliefs of animals, lions, foxes, scorpions, vultures, and serpents. The carvings are sophisticated, detailed, and demonstrate artistic ability that shouldn't exist in the Stone Age. The pillars were quarried from bedrock, transported uphill, erected, and arranged in complex circular patterns that show clear astronomical alignments. This level of organization requires social hierarchy, division of labor, architectural planning, engineering knowledge, a reason to invest thousands of hours in a non-survival activity, all of which contradicts the hunter-gatherer narrative. Here's where it gets even stranger. Recent analysis suggests that building Göbekli Tepe would have required a workforce of 500 to 1,000 people, working for decades. But remember, these were supposedly hunter-gatherers. Small nomadic groups of 20 to 30 people maximum. Where did the workforce come from? What fed them? Who organized them? Why would scattered nomadic tribes suddenly come together to build a massive ceremonial complex? The traditional narrative has no answer. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Göbekli Tepe isn't its construction. It's what happened next. Around 8000 BC, the entire complex was deliberately buried, filled in with tons of dirt and rubble. Carefully, methodically, preserved. Why would anyone invest so much effort in building this structure, only to bury it? What were they hiding or protecting? Recent studies have revealed something even more extraordinary. The arrangement of the pillars appears to encode astronomical information. The positions correlate with star patterns from 10,000 BC. One pillar, called the Vulture Stone, may depict the Younger Dryas impact event, a cosmic catastrophe that occurred around 10,800 BC, causing sudden climate change and possible mass extinction. If this interpretation is correct, it means the builders of Göbekli Tepe had sophisticated astronomical knowledge, recorded historical events in stone, understood symbolic representation, were documenting a global catastrophe. This is civilization-level knowledge. 7,000 years before civilization was supposed to exist. Dr. Schmidt himself said, "Göbekli Tepe is a complete game changer. It demonstrates that we need to completely rethink our understanding of the Neolithic period." But it's more than that. If hunter-gatherers built Göbekli Tepe, then they weren't primitive. They had knowledge, organization, and capability far beyond what we've credited them with. Or, they inherited this knowledge from an earlier civilization. A civilization we haven't discovered yet. A civilization that may have been destroyed in the catastrophe they carved into stone. Here's the truly disturbing part. Ground-penetrating radar shows that what's been excavated so far is less than 5% of the site. There are at least 20 more circular structures still buried underground. The Turkish government has severely restricted access to the site. Excavation has slowed to a crawl. What are they afraid of finding? What knowledge is still buried beneath that ancient soil, waiting to completely shatter our understanding of human history? From the oldest impossible structure to one of the most advanced ancient devices ever discovered. What we're about to examine next is so sophisticated, so technically advanced, that when it was first found, scientists thought it was a hoax. Chapter 3: The Antikythera Mechanism. In 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera discovered a Roman shipwreck. Among the statues and pottery, they found something that looked like a corroded lump of bronze. For decades, it sat in a museum, largely ignored. Then in 1951, a British scientist named Derek J. de Solla Price began examining it closely. What he found inside that ancient bronze was impossible. It was a computer. Using X-ray technology, Price discovered that this corroded lump contained dozens of precisely engineered bronze gears, arranged in a complex mechanism that shouldn't exist. The device was built around 100 BC. Gear technology this sophisticated wasn't supposed to exist again until the 14th century, 1,400 years later. Let me repeat that. The Antikythera mechanism represents a technology that disappeared for over a millennium, leaving no trace of how it was developed or lost. After decades of study, including modern CT scanning and 3D modeling, scientists have determined what this device actually does. It's an analog computer designed to predict the positions of the sun and moon, lunar phases, eclipse predictions years in advance, the movements of the 5 known planets, the dates of the Olympic Games, the 19-year metonic cycle of lunar months, the 223-month Saros cycle of eclipses. It could calculate all of this by simply turning a crank. The mechanism contains at least 30 precisely cut bronze gears, including differential gears, a technology we didn't rediscover until the 16th century. The precision of the gear teeth is extraordinary. Each gear was hand-cut with triangular teeth, evenly spaced, designed to mesh perfectly with other gears in the system. The largest gear has 223 teeth, corresponding to the Saros eclipse cycle. The tolerances are so tight that modern researchers needed advanced manufacturing equipment to create working replicas. Michael Wright, a former curator at the Science Museum in London, spent years building a functioning replica. He concluded, "This is astronomy and mathematics translated into metal. It's astonishing." But here's what truly boggles the mind. To build this device, the ancient Greeks needed advanced understanding of planetary orbits, knowledge of multiple astronomical cycles, sophisticated mathematics including gear ratios, metalworking precision at microscopic levels, understanding of mechanical engineering, knowledge we claim they didn't have. The device demonstrates that ancient astronomers knew the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, that they understood complex orbital mechanics, and could predict astronomical events with shocking accuracy. This is Copernican-level knowledge. 1,700 years before Copernicus. Here's the disturbing question no one can answer. If the Greeks could build this in 100 BC, what else could they build that we haven't found? More importantly, where's the developmental history? Complex technology doesn't appear fully formed. It evolves over generations of refinement. Where are the primitive versions? The failed prototypes? The gradual improvements? They don't exist. It's as if someone handed the Greeks a complete blueprint. And they simply built it. After the fall of Rome, this technology completely disappeared. For over 1,000 years, nothing even remotely comparable existed. When medieval Europeans finally developed similar mechanisms, they had to rediscover everything from scratch. How does an entire branch of advanced technology simply vanish? What else was lost in the collapse of the ancient world? The Antikythera mechanism proves, beyond any doubt, that our ancestors were capable of technological sophistication we've consistently underestimated. It proves that ancient knowledge was far more advanced than mainstream history acknowledges. And it raises the most disturbing question of all. If this one device survived by pure chance, found only because divers happened upon a shipwreck in 1901, what other impossible technologies existed? What else is lying at the bottom of the ocean? Or buried beneath ancient ruins, waiting to completely rewrite everything we think we know? Transition. Speaking of impossible precision, what we're about to examine next makes the Antikythera mechanism look simple. It's a site where massive stones were cut and fitted together with such impossible accuracy that modern engineers still can't figure out how it was done. Chapter 4: Puma Punku's Precision Puzzle. High in the Bolivian Andes, at an altitude of 12,800 feet, sits a complex of ruins that defies every logical explanation. Puma Punku? Part of the larger Tiwanaku archaeological complex, these ruins have been called the most important archaeological site on Earth by some researchers. Others call it impossible. Puma Punku consists of megalithic stones cut from red sandstone and andesite. But these aren't rough blocks stacked together. These are precision machined components, fitted together with such accuracy that you cannot slip a piece of paper between the joints. Some stones weigh over 130 tons. They contain perfectly straight edges, perfectly flat surfaces, and precise 90-degree angles. Many blocks have intricate interlocking features, channels, grooves, and shapes that fit together like a complex three-dimensional puzzle. Engineer Christopher Dunn, who we met earlier, also studied Puma Punku. His analysis revealed tolerances within 1/100th of an inch across enormous stone surfaces. To put that in perspective, that's the thickness of 2 sheets of paper. On stones weighing dozens of tons, the surfaces are so flat and smooth that they appear to have been machined. The right angles are so perfect they match precision manufacturing standards. The holes drilled through some stones are perfectly circular, with parallel sides, something extremely difficult to achieve even with modern tools. Here's where it becomes impossible. According to conventional archaeology, the Tiwanaku culture had no written language, no wheeled vehicles, no iron tools, and no draft animals. They supposedly worked these stones using stone hammers and bronze chisels. But you cannot achieve this level of precision with primitive tools. Engineer Jesus Gamara, who has worked with precision stone cutting for decades, examined the site and stated flatly, this was done with machine tools. There's no other explanation. The problem is machine tools didn't exist 1,000 to 2,000 years ago when this was built. The most puzzling features at Puma Punku are the so-called H blocks. These are massive andesite stones, each weighing about 20 tons, carved into complex shapes, with perfectly flat surfaces, precise angles, and intricate channels. The channels are uniform in width and depth. The surfaces are polished smooth. The corners are sharp and exact. Remember, andesite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, second only to diamond in hardness. To cut it with this precision would require diamond-tipped tools, or lasers, or some other advanced cutting technology we're told didn't exist. Even more mysterious is the fact that the stones at Puma Punku appear to be part of a modular building system. The blocks interlock in specific ways, suggesting they were manufactured to exact specifications, like modern prefabricated components. This implies standardized measurements, planned engineering, mass production techniques, sophisticated architectural design. This is industrial age thinking. From a culture that supposedly had Stone Age technology. But the precision cutting is only part of the mystery. Where did these stones come from? The closest andesite quarry is 10 miles away. The red sandstone comes from a quarry 40 miles away, on the opposite side of Lake Titicaca. So these massive 130-ton blocks were quarried, transported dozens of miles over mountains and across water, brought to an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, and then precision cut and assembled. With no wheels, no machinery, no metal tools. Perhaps the strangest thing about Puma Punku is that it appears to have been destroyed by some catastrophic event. The massive blocks are scattered, some thrown hundreds of feet from their original positions. Whatever happened here? It was violent enough to toss multi-ton stones like toys. Was it an earthquake? A flood? Or something else? And here's the truly unsettling part. The local legends speak of a great flood that destroyed an ancient civilization. The same flood mentioned in cultures around the world. Every established theory about Puma Punku has problems. The precision can't be explained by the available tools. The transport can't be explained by the available technology. The engineering can't be explained by the supposed knowledge level. So we're left with only two possibilities: either our understanding of ancient technology is completely wrong, or someone with advanced knowledge built Puma Punku, and we have no idea who they were. From impossible stone cutting to something even stranger. What if I told you that the ancient world had electricity? That they understood electrical generation 2,000 years before Benjamin Franklin? Sound impossible? The evidence says otherwise. Chapter 5: Ancient Electrical Knowledge. In 1936, while excavating outside Baghdad, workers discovered something that shouldn't exist. Inside a 2,000-year-old ruin, they found a ceramic jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. It looked like a crude construction. The archaeologist who first examined it, Wilhelm Koenig, noticed something strange about the design. The copper cylinder was sealed at the bottom with asphalt. The iron rod was held in place, but didn't touch the sides. The whole assembly was carefully crafted to prevent contact between the metals except at the top. Koenig realized this is a galvanic cell, a battery. In 1940, an engineer named Willard Gray built exact replicas of these Baghdad batteries. When filled with acidic liquid, like vinegar or wine, they produced approximately 1.1 volts of electricity. The experiment has been repeated numerous times since, always with the same result. These ancient jars can generate electricity. But why? What were they used for? One theory suggests they were used for electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of gold or silver using electrical current. And here's the thing, some ancient artifacts show evidence of electroplating. Gold-plated items from the same period show uniform coating thickness that's difficult to achieve without electricity. Ancient goldsmiths might have discovered that using these devices produced better, more consistent plating than traditional mercury amalgam methods. But this means they understood electrical generation, chemical reactions, metal conductivity, practical applications of electricity 2,000 years before the scientific revolution. But the Baghdad Battery isn't the only evidence of ancient electrical knowledge. In the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, there's a curious relief carving that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. It shows what appears to be a large bulb-shaped object, with a wavy line inside, resembling a filament, connected to a braided cable, and a box that looks remarkably like a modern electrical generator. Mainstream archaeologists claim it's purely symbolic, representing mythology. But engineers who've examined it see something different. Austrian engineer Walter Gahn created a working model based on the Dendera relief. He built a replica of the depicted device using ancient technology and materials. The result? It functioned as a primitive electric lamp. The bulb was a sealed glass vessel. The Egyptians could make glass. The cable was a conductor. The box was a power source, potentially multiple Baghdad batteries connected in series. When activated, his reconstruction produced light. Not bright by modern standards, but sufficient for illuminating dark corridors deep inside pyramids and temples. This actually solves a major archaeological mystery. Deep inside the pyramids and ancient temples are chambers and passages decorated with incredibly detailed hieroglyphics and paintings. These artworks required light to create. You can't carve or paint in total darkness. But there's no evidence of torch marks on the ceilings. No soot buildup from oil lamps. The paint colors are pristine, without smoke damage. How did the ancient artists see what they were doing? Could they have had electric lights? Some researchers have gone further, suggesting that ancient civilizations might have had arc lamps, primitive versions of carbon arc lighting. Sir William Crookes, a famous physicist, examined certain ancient glass objects and determined they showed characteristics of having been exposed to high voltage discharge, something that shouldn't exist in the ancient world. Whether this is true remains controversial. But the question lingers, what else might they have powered with electricity? If ancient peoples did understand electricity, even in primitive form, how was this knowledge lost? Why did humanity have to rediscover electrical principles from scratch in the 18th century? What happened to cause such a catastrophic loss of knowledge? The Baghdad Battery and the Dendera Light are part of a larger pattern we keep seeing. Advanced knowledge appearing in the ancient world, then vanishing, then being discovered again thousands of years later, as if for the first time. It's the same pattern we saw with the Antikythera mechanism's gears, Göbekli Tepe's astronomical knowledge, the Great Pyramid's precision. What caused these repeated cycles of advanced knowledge and catastrophic loss? Speaking of lost knowledge, our next mystery takes us to the Peruvian desert, where ancient people created artwork so massive, so precise, that you can only see the complete picture from the sky. In an age before flight. Chapter 6, the Nazca Lines Enigma. In the 1920s, as commercial aviation began flying over the Nazca Desert in Peru, pilots started reporting something extraordinary. Below them, etched into the desert floor, were massive lines, geometric shapes, and figures of animals. But these weren't small drawings. They were huge, some stretching for hundreds of feet, others for miles. And they were only visible from the air. The Nazca Lines had been there for over 1,500 years, waiting to be seen from a perspective that shouldn't have existed when they were made. There are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and 70 animal and plant designs spread across 450 square kilometers of desert. The lines are created by removing the reddish surface stones to reveal the lighter colored ground beneath. Some lines run perfectly straight for over 30 miles, never deviating despite changes in terrain. The famous geoglyphs include a hummingbird spanning 305 feet, a spider 150 feet long, a monkey 360 feet wide, a condor measuring 440 feet, geometric spirals and trapezoids over 2,000 feet long. Here's what's extraordinary about the Nazca Lines: they're precise. The straight lines deviate by less than 4 meters over distances of 15 miles. Try that yourself with modern surveying equipment, it's incredibly difficult. The animal figures maintain perfect proportions despite their enormous size. The curves are smooth and exact, as if drawn with a massive compass. Creating such precision on this scale requires accurate measurement tools, planning and mathematical calculations, the ability to see the overall design, sophisticated surveying techniques, but here's the central mystery: why create artwork that can only be appreciated from the air, when you have no way to get into the air? The Nazca people had no flight technology, no hot air balloons, no way to see their own work in its intended perspective. So why make it? Over the decades, numerous theories have been proposed. Astronomy theory: Maria Reich spent decades studying the lines, concluding some aligned with astronomical events. But only about 20% show clear astronomical correlations. Water cult theory: some suggest the lines point to water sources or were part of rain ceremonies. Possible, but doesn't explain the animal figures or the precision. Alien runway theory, made famous by Erich von Däniken, suggesting the lines were landing strips for alien spacecraft. Dismissed by mainstream science, but the question remains: why make them visible only from above? Religious pathway theory: the lines were walking paths for religious processions. But this doesn't explain why they needed to be straight for 30 miles. None of these theories fully satisfy. Recent analysis has revealed something even more intriguing. Some of the geoglyphs align with underground aquifers, water sources deep beneath the desert surface. The Nazca people couldn't see these underground water sources. They're too deep. Yet somehow, they knew exactly where they were and marked them on the surface with precision. How? Did they have some form of ground-penetrating sensing? Unknown technology? Or inherited knowledge from an earlier civilization that understood hydrology? Local legends speak of Viracocha, a god who could fly and who taught the ancient people mathematics and engineering. In 1975, explorers Jim Woodman and Julian Knott proved that the ancient Nazca could have had primitive flight technology. They built a hot air balloon using only materials and techniques available to the Nazca culture. They flew it successfully over the Nazca Lines. Did the ancient Nazca have hot air balloons? There's no direct evidence. But cryptically, the Nazca pottery includes images of what appear to be objects resembling hot air balloons. One final mystery: why have the Nazca Lines survived for 1,500 years? The desert is incredibly dry, which helps. But these are just shallow grooves in the dirt. They should have eroded, blown away, or filled in. Yet they remain as clear as the day they were made. It's as if they were meant to last. To be seen by someone in the future who would have the technology to appreciate them from the air. Were the Nazca people sending a message through time? And if so, what were they trying to tell us? From mysterious lines in the desert to entire cities that vanished in a single day, what we're about to explore reveals evidence of catastrophes so sudden, so devastating, that entire civilizations disappeared, leaving behind mysteries that science still cannot solve. Chapter 7: Lost Cities and AMP, Forgotten Catastrophes. In 1922, archaeologists excavating in the Indus Valley discovered a massive city buried beneath Pakistani soil. Mohenjo-daro, one of the largest cities of the ancient world, with a population estimated at 40,000. But this wasn't a primitive settlement. It was a planned city with sophisticated grid layout, advanced drainage systems, multi-story buildings, public baths, standardized brick sizes, what appears to be a proto-sewage system. This is urban planning that wouldn't appear again in human history for over 2,000 years. But the most disturbing thing about Mohenjo-daro isn't how advanced it was. It's how it ended. The city was suddenly abandoned around 1900 BC. No gradual decline. No signs of conquest or invasion. Just abandoned. Walking through the ruins, archaeologists found skeletons lying in the streets, as if people dropped dead instantly. No signs of trauma or violence on the bodies. People appeared to be fleeing something, evidence of extreme heat. Stones melted and fused together. Black stones and glass formed from superheated sand what could cause entire populations to die instantly, with no warning, leaving bodies in the streets. In the 1990s, researchers testing the site found something disturbing: elevated radiation levels. Not dramatically high, but higher than background radiation should be. Some skeletons showed radiation levels 50 times higher than normal. British researcher David Davenport spent 12 years studying Mohenjo-daro and concluded there appears to be an epicenter about 50 yards wide where everything was crystallized, fused, or melted. This is consistent with an atomic blast. Here's where it gets truly bizarre. Ancient Sanskrit texts, including the Mahabharata, describe weapons that sound disturbingly like nuclear devices. A single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and flame, as bright as 10,000 suns, rose in all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death which reduced to ashes the entire race. These texts describe weapons that produce blinding light, create mushroom-shaped clouds, cause hair and nails to fall out, radiation sickness, contaminate food and water, require warriors to wash themselves and their equipment after battle. Decontamination. Now, mainstream archaeology dismisses the nuclear theory entirely. They propose that Mohenjo-daro was abandoned due to climate change, shifting rivers, decline in trade, possible earthquake, but these explanations don't account for the instant nature of the abandonment, the bodies in the streets, the evidence of extreme heat, the radiation readings, the vitrified stones. Something catastrophic happened at Mohenjo-daro. Whether it was nuclear or some other unknown force, we may never know. Mohenjo-daro isn't alone. Around the world, we find evidence of sudden catastrophes that destroyed advanced civilizations. Çatalhöyük in Turkey, suddenly abandoned with no explanation. The Minoan civilization, destroyed by what might have been a massive volcanic eruption, but showing evidence of additional unknown catastrophes. The Sea Peoples, mysterious invaders who destroyed Mediterranean civilizations around 1200 BC, then vanished without trace. The Bronze Age collapse, around 1200 BC, every major civilization in the Mediterranean and Near East collapsed within a span of 50 years. Cities were destroyed. Trade ceased. Writing systems disappeared. It's called the First Dark Age, and we still don't know what caused it. Then there are the flood legends. Over 200 cultures around the world have traditions of a great flood that destroyed the previous world: the biblical flood of Noah, the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, Hindu texts describing the flood of Manu, Greek stories of Deucalion's flood, Native American flood traditions, Chinese flood mythology, Aboriginal Australian flood stories, all describing the same event, a massive flood that destroyed civilization. Coincidence? Mass delusion? Or racial memory of an actual catastrophe? Here's the unsettling part. Geological evidence suggests there was a massive global flooding event around 11,600 years ago, the end of the last ice age. Sea levels rose over 300 feet as glaciers melted. Coastal civilizations would have been completely inundated. Any advanced civilization living near the coast, where most civilizations develop, would have been obliterated. What if there were advanced civilizations before recorded history? What if they were destroyed by catastrophe, flood, impact event, or something else? What if the primitive ancient peoples we know were actually survivors, trying to rebuild, carrying fragmented memories of lost knowledge? This would explain advanced knowledge appearing suddenly, the decline of precision and technology over time, similar flood myths worldwide, structures like Göbekli Tepe, the pattern of knowledge loss. Speaking of impossible structures, what we're about to examine takes stonework to a level that seems almost supernatural. Walls built with such perfection that they've survived earthquakes that destroyed everything around them. Walls that modern engineers call impossible. Chapter 8: Impossible stonework. Outside Cusco, Peru, sits a fortress wall that defies explanation. Sacsayhuamán. The massive stones of this wall fit together with such precision that you cannot insert a knife blade between them. No mortar. No cement. Just perfect stone-on-stone contact. But these aren't small stones. Some weigh over 200 tons. The blocks at Sacsayhuamán have complex polygonal shapes, sometimes with as many as 12 angles. Each stone has a completely unique, irregular shape. Yet they fit together perfectly with their neighbors, creating a wall so stable it has survived 5 centuries of earthquakes that destroyed Spanish colonial buildings around it. The precision is beyond modern capabilities. Engineer Jean-Pierre Protzen spent years studying Incan stonework. He attempted to recreate their techniques using tools available to the Incans. His conclusion: I was able to achieve close fits, but not the precision seen at Sacsayhuamán. Their technique remains a mystery. One of the strangest features at Sacsayhuamán is the presence of mysterious knobs and nubs on many stones. These protrusions serve no apparent structural purpose. Some researchers believe they might have been used during construction, perhaps as attachment points for lifting devices. But here's the problem: many knobs are located in positions that would make them useless for lifting. Some appear to be decorative, but they're on stones that weigh hundreds of tons. Why add unnecessary decoration that requires additional stone cutting? One alternative theory, proposed by researcher Breen Forster: the nubs might be evidence of advanced stone manipulation technology that we don't understand. How were these 200-ton stones moved? The nearest quarry for the largest stones is 20 miles away. The route includes steep terrain and valleys. The Incans had no wheels, no pulleys, no draft animals strong enough to pull such weight. Spanish chroniclers asked the Incans how their ancestors moved the stones. The response: they knew the secret of making stones light. What does that mean? Is it metaphor? Or do the legends preserve a memory of technology we don't understand? Leaving Peru, let's examine another impossible stone mystery. Throughout Scotland and parts of Europe exist ancient structures called vitrified forts. These are stone fortifications where the stones have been partially melted and fused together into glass-like material. Vitrification requires temperatures of at least 1,100 degrees Celsius, 2,012 degrees Fahrenheit. Wood fires don't burn hot enough to vitrify stone on this scale. Yet hundreds of these structures exist. Various theories have been proposed. The forts were deliberately burned in warfare. The builders intentionally created the vitrification for structural strength. Lightning strikes caused the melting, but each theory has problems. Wood fires can't reach the required temperature. Deliberately melting the stones would require enormous fuel and sophisticated temperature control. Lightning strikes would be localized, not affect entire sections of wall. So what created heat intense enough to melt stone across wide areas? In Egypt, massive granite obelisks stand as monuments to ancient engineering. The largest, the Lateran obelisk, stands 105 feet tall and weighs 455 tons. It's carved from a single piece of granite. The question isn't just how they carved it, though that's impressive enough. The question is, how did they transport and erect it? Modern engineering analysis shows that lifting and placing such an obelisk requires precise weight distribution, careful balance during raising, enormous force applied at exactly the right angles, technology to prevent the stone from shattering under its own weight. For a modern comparison, consider the Coral Castle in Florida. Between 1923 and 1951, a single man named Edward Leeds Cowlin carved and erected over 1,100 tons of coral rock. He worked alone, mostly at night, and refused to reveal his methods. Some stones weigh over 30 tons. He had no modern equipment, no help, no advanced training. Yet he created structures that include a 9-ton gate balanced so perfectly it can be moved with one finger, perfectly carved chairs and tables from multi-ton coral blocks, precisely aligned astronomical features. When asked how he did it, He claimed to understand the secrets of the pyramid builders. He died without revealing his methods. Across continents and millennia, we see the same pattern. Massive stones moved and placed with impossible precision. Cutting and shaping technology that exceeds known capabilities. Knowledge that seems to appear fully formed, then disappears. What did ancient peoples know that we've forgotten? Or more disturbingly, who taught them? All of these mysteries, the impossible engineering, the lost technology, the precision stonework, they all point to one conclusion: ancient civilizations possessed knowledge they shouldn't have had. But the final mystery might be the most shocking of all. Evidence that ancient peoples had scientific knowledge that we only rediscovered in the last few centuries. Knowledge they had no way of obtaining on their own. Chapter 9: The Knowledge They Shouldn't Have. In 1929, scholars examining ancient documents in an Istanbul palace discovered something extraordinary. A map. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis. But this wasn't just any map. It showed the coast of Antarctica. With perfect accuracy. 300 years before Antarctica was officially discovered. And here's the truly impossible part: it showed the coastline of Antarctica as it appears under the ice. The map had to be based on source maps that were drawn when Antarctica was ice-free, which would be over 6,000 years ago. Modern analysis of the Piri Reis map revealed something even more shocking: the latitudes and longitudes are accurate to within half a degree. This level of precision requires accurate timekeeping devices to calculate longitude, spherical trigonometry, a complete understanding that Earth is round, surveying techniques far in advance of the 16th century. Piri Reis wrote on the map that he compiled it from over 20 source maps, some from the time of Alexander the Great. Where did those ancient maps come from? Who surveyed Antarctica 6,000 plus years ago? Remember the Antikythera mechanism? We discussed its precision engineering, but we didn't talk about the knowledge it contains. The device accurately models the elliptical orbit of the Moon, a discovery attributed to Kepler in 1609, the variable motion of the planets, the Metonic cycle, 19-year lunar calendar, the Callippic cycle, 76-year calendar, the Saros cycle, eclipse prediction. This is knowledge that shouldn't exist in the ancient world. The mechanism proves that ancient astronomers understood celestial mechanics at a level comparable to Copernicus, Kepler, and Newton. The ancient Sumerians kept detailed records of their kings. But the Sumerian king list contains something bizarre. It claims that before the Great Flood, kings reigned for impossibly long periods, some for tens of thousands of years. After the flood, reign lengths become normal, decades rather than millennia. Mainstream scholars dismiss this as mythology. But what if it's not counting years the way we do? What if it's recording something else, cycles, generations, or some other unit of time? Or what if it preserves a memory of an older civilization where time was measured differently? In West Africa, the Dogon people have an oral tradition that describes the Sirius star system with shocking accuracy. They knew that Sirius has a companion star, Sirius B, that's invisible to the naked eye. They knew its orbital period, 50 years, correct. They knew it was incredibly dense and heavy, it's a white dwarf. They knew this long before Western astronomy discovered Sirius B in 1862 using telescopes. When anthropologists asked them how they knew this, the Dogon said their ancestors were taught by beings from the Sirius system who visited Earth in ancient times. The Sumerians, one of the earliest civilizations, appeared suddenly around 4000 BC with fully developed writing, advanced mathematics including base 60 number system. We still use it for time and angles, detailed astronomical knowledge, sophisticated agriculture, legal codes, literature and poetry. There's no gradual development. It appears complete. They described our solar system with stunning accuracy, including planets we didn't discover until the modern era. Some Sumerian texts describe a planet called Nibiru with a 3,600-year orbit. Modern astronomy has recently discovered evidence of Planet 9, a theoretical planet on the far edges of our solar system. Coincidence? We discussed the Baghdad Battery, but ancient chemistry goes deeper. The Egyptians had sophisticated metallurgy, chemical compounds for mummification that we still don't fully understand, glass-making techniques, pigments and dyes that remain vibrant after 4,000 years. The Damascus steel of ancient swords had a carbon nanotube structure, something we thought was a 20th century discovery. Ancient Romans had self-healing concrete that's superior to modern concrete in durability. Every single one of these examples follows the same disturbing pattern. Knowledge appears suddenly. It's highly sophisticated. It exists for a while. Then it's lost. We rediscover it thousands of years later. It's as if human civilization keeps finding pieces of a blueprint, using them, then losing them, then finding them again. So what does all this mean? Where does it leave us? The final chapter of our journey pulls together all these threads and asks the question that changes everything. These mysteries leave us with only 3 possible explanations. First, our ancestors were far more intelligent, capable, and advanced than we've given them credit for. They developed sophisticated technology using methods we've lost or forgotten. Second, there was an earlier advanced civilization, predating known history, that was destroyed by catastrophe. Survivors passed down fragments of their knowledge, which appeared as sudden advancement in later cultures. Third, ancient humans received knowledge from an outside source, whether advanced human civilizations now lost, time travelers, or something else entirely. Which explanation is correct? The honest answer is we don't know. What we do know is this. The mainstream archaeological establishment has consistently ignored, dismissed, or suppressed evidence that doesn't fit the accepted narrative. Sites are left unexcavated. Research is underfunded. Scientists who ask difficult questions are marginalized. Why? Is it simply academic inertia, the reluctance to overturn decades of accepted theory? Or is there something more? What are they afraid we might find? Here's what I want you to take away from this journey: question everything. The history you were taught is incomplete at best, deliberately misleading at worst. Our ancestors were not primitive. They were not ignorant. They possessed knowledge and capabilities that challenge our understanding of technological development. They left us messages in stone, in maps, in devices that we're only beginning to understand. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle. Each raises more questions than it answers. The mystery isn't solved. It's deepening. And that's where you come in. Share this information. Research these mysteries yourself. Demand better answers. Support independent researchers who are asking the difficult questions. The truth about our past is out there. It's written in stone, carved in metal, and buried beneath our feet. We just have to be willing to look. And brave enough to accept what we find. Remember, every mainstream belief that we accept today was once considered impossible. Heavier than air flight, impossible. Around Earth, heresy. Germs causing disease, ridiculous. Splitting the atom, fantasy. Until it wasn't. The impossible mysteries we've explored today might be possible tomorrow. And when we finally understand them, when we finally accept what they're telling us, everything will change. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the impossible. If this video opened your mind to new possibilities, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who are ready to question the official narrative. In the description below, you'll find links to primary sources, research papers, and additional resources for each mystery we've covered. The search for truth doesn't end here. It's just beginning. And the most shocking discoveries might still be ahead.